Wednesday evening. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Show number 140. Welcome to another edition, the Juneteenth edition of Soul Tree Radio in the Raw. I'm your host, Michael Lewis Ingram, DJ Honeycomb, and as always, it is good to be in the house with you as we are in the middle of a transition. We are about to step into the vernal equinox, y'all. Summer is in the air. Hot fun indeed. Soul Tree Radio in the Raw, sponsored by the Black Athlete Sports Network, Roland Rogers, CEO and loving memory. Our friends at Blog Talk Radio, our colleagues and friends at 1450 WCLM AM, the soul of Richmond, Virginia, Cowboy, Reggie, and crew. The Cowboy will be riding the range and checking in a bit. Our friends at WUFO 1080 AM, The Mix in Buffalo, New York, where Pat Freeman is leading a spirited opposition to the local politics in trying to get a stadium and jobs for very needy folks out there in the western New York area. He's doing yeoman work, and we salute him and respect him as he tries to chip away at the Rock of Gibraltar with a butter knife. God bless him. We also want to send a shout-out to our friends at Guardian Caps, Leonard Hansen and Mike Feely, looking out for adults of all ages to play safely. And, of course, you guys. And my good friend Anthony Johnson, who does a great job with his show every Thursday night on Blog Talk from 9 to 10. I want to send a shout-out to Jimmy Stevens, whose band is playing over in Philly right now. I wish I could be there, but I'm on the air, Jimmy. Good luck tonight. I know it's going to be a tight set. And I want to send some love out there to Ma, Vanessa. I know you're getting better, so just between you and I and all the rest of the folks listening on here, the Wolfman, ow, says hello. With love. Now, as some of the resident chefs will be popping in later, I want to get to the menu for tonight. On Turntable One, it was interesting because I was watching soccer for a good part of the afternoon, the Confederation Cup, which is always the prelude to the World Cup. It will be held in Brazil this year, the World Cup and the Olympics. So they get a double doo-wop. They get the World Cup in 2014 and the Olympics in 2016. But there's not as many people as you think who are all crazy about the idea of Brazil getting the cup. So a very impassioned video was made by a young lady who produced it, a filmmaker named Carla Dowden, and she's giving you the other side of what really should be going on in Brazil, and that's going to be discussed on Turntable Two. What can we say? Was the NBA championship choked away by San Antonio? It's a good question. We'll talk about that for a little bit, and we've been talking about the Jay-Z effect for a while. It looks like it's still alive and well as he goes on national television to blow up his latest project, saying that it's a huge success. So how many basketball players, football, baseball, and hockey players heard that and are thinking they might want to be part of Rock Nation? Something else to explore. In our third turntable, we hopefully are going to hear from one or two representatives of the Old Skool Players. We've had them on several times in their ongoing fight to try to get normalcy in their lives by having their proper due given to them by the National Football League. And as more and more folks keep dying and the delay process continues, it has become more of an arduous trek for these brothers to do what they need to do in order to get what it really is rightfully theirs. You know, in addition to that, we're going to talk about a few other things. The Aaron Hernandez situation with the Patriots, the possible homicide, a 6-year-old girl. And this was an old story, but this was dug up and verified by the research department as being a little dated, but it goes to something we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now regarding terrorizing kids, whether it is something simple as their graduation being dumped on, or the simple reality that no matter how you achieve, we're going to find some way to dump on it and not give you what you're supposed to get. Whether it's a pat on the back, whether it's just the acknowledgement that you've made this milestone and you're going on to the next one, there's something very funky about that. So we will get into that as well. Now, I also need to tell you guys that there are some gremlins in the house. So those who are trying to get in, please keep trying. For some reason, this has been happening quite often, and I don't want to assimilate or make any guesses as to why it's going on. So I won't assume. Assimilate's the wrong word. Forgive me. But what I do want to talk about to start things off tonight has to do with something that popped up in casual conversation, and then I found out was verified later on. We've talked about how kids in Texas were getting arrested for truancy. I mean, not just given like detention or stuff like that, but really thrown in jail. And while we all agree that it's horrendous, just us even think about it on the premise, something was verified that kind of sickened me. We've also mentioned how private corrections institutions are trying to fill the jails up as quickly as possible. But this one piece of information really disturbed me, because in addition to this whole idea of, trying to create a pipeline from school to jail or from home to jail or from any damn where to jail, something else popped up in the fine print. Apparently, and I believe this is also true in Mississippi, we're still trying to verify, the pipeline that Mississippi had set up from school to jail, and with Texas as well, happens to do with agreements that were made to not just keep the jails filled at least 90% capacity, but to make the whole issue contractually binding. Now, think about that. You've got a contract with the state of whomever, psychotic, euphoric, whatever, that you're going to guarantee these people, or whatever conglomerate you want to call it, that you're going to guarantee 90% of their jails are going to be filled. So if we just take this to Journalism 101 and ask the 5 questions, who, what, when, where, why, and in this case, how as well, if you can do that, and if you're contractually responsible for making sure that all the jails in your state are at 90% capacity, who would be the person to sign off on this shit? Would it be the governor? Is it a special manager that we've seen some states pull in regard to trying to utilize that as a means to do the governor's dirty work, or literally be an overseer, in a real sense? If we go what? Well, we know what the main premise would be. Keep the jails filled so they make money. But if we go why, it comes back to money. Why would you do this? Why would you spend this much money for jails and not for education? Where? If this is regionally applicable, does it matter? Are you talking about the main counties? And if it's a state where some counties may have a disproportionate amount of people of color as opposed to other counties, is it only effective in certain areas of the state and not all of the state? Who, what, when, where, why? When was this initiated? When all of a sudden did we start seeing this? And not just in Mississippi and Texas, but when did this start to filter through every state? Why was not the press involved in this? Why was mainstream media not saying anything about this? When was somebody going to fucking say something? And for those who, again, and I must say this only because I've had new people coming in and listening and saying, oh, it's all right, but, why must you cuss? Are you out of your fucking minds? If something like this doesn't make you cuss, you really need to have your head examined. Because the real profanity here isn't me saying what the fuck is going on. The real profanity is what I just ran off. You're talking about at least 2 states now where they're telling everybody that 90% of their jails are contractually liable to be filled. They don't care who you fill them with. There may be a preference because maybe it's tied to how much labor is generated by prisoners for whatever industry might be part of that state, or whatever might be sent off by mail order, or whatever the hell may be? Where are these questions being asked other than here? I know somebody's got to be asking them, because these tidbits of information wouldn't have made their way through cyberspace somehow to get here. So we know there are people who are on some of the alternate news blogs might be bringing this up. They might be trying to actually play journalists and come out and bring out some pertinent information. But why isn't this shit on the news? This is the kind of territory where 60 Minutes and Nightline and all these other wannabe would throw that shit out there, and it's like, all right, what's up, y'all? Here's the news. 15, 20 minutes or whatever, sans commercials devoted to a specific topic and something that would be reasonably pertinent to our situations, our way of life, standard of living, whatever you want to call it. But not a word is being said. Now, even though we could easily say it's about color here, something's not right. Because you got to figure anybody who's in the have-not slant on all this, they've got to be upset. They got to be saying, what about my babies? We already know this shit's happened in Pennsylvania, and we've talked about this gobs at times. We know stuff's going on. What the hell is going on, and why aren't people responding to it? That's the real question. We need to know, why aren't people responding? Now, we know that if a Fox News slants their news and everything like that, then clearly you're not going to get real stuff out unless it fits their agenda. But MSNBC, the bastion of liberalism and all those things, yes, we're trying to do good by everybody. Okay, laudable. But we haven't heard much from MSNBC on this either. Now, I think every now and then you might hear Lawrence O'Donnell, who does good stuff, and Rachel Maddow, who does good stuff, pop out on something. But there needs to be something consistent with this. We can't be worrying as much about the out-and-out politics, which we know is deliberate and has been going on for God knows how long in Congress, and be sidetracked to realities that are facing everybody here. The fact that states are contractually liable to keeping prisons filled at a 90% retention rate scares the fuck out of me. And I don't know why it would scare the fuck out of anybody else. I recently saw some video where even in good old New York City, capital of the world, and all the other stuff that's supposed to go with it, they're doing the same thing to students in the city. Cops are stopping them coming out of subway stations, or before they get out of subway stations, taking information from them if they happen to be late on their way to school. Now, who knows what the fucking cops know regarding what time the kid should be in school. And if a kid's trying to get to school and you say you're stopping him because he's late, well, doesn't that make him more late? So there's a cop at the school, as far as I understand it, in the New York City school system. They've got school officers there who, if they want to make note of any kid who's tardy, they can do that. But why are policemen stopping them in subway stations? According to the video, they were saying, well, we stop everybody. And the person who I guess was asking the question said, well, are you stopping people in nicer neighborhoods too? Oh, yeah, we do that too. And, of course, the cop would then, stick his hand up to the camera and say, don't take any more pictures, nothing to see here. But the fact that these kids are so desensitized to it because the cops are supposedly joking with them because the camera was on them, belies the fact that if these kids are supposedly late, why are you detaining them? If they haven't done anything, if they haven't committed a crime, why are you detaining them? This pipeline that seems to be nonstop, that seems no one was going to have a chance to speak up and interrupt it, is getting worse and worse. Now, there was a blip in the radar where it was said that people were trying to form a coalition and go to Washington to fight people being jailed for things like small possessions of marijuana, nonviolent crimes of that ilk and whatnot. And those draconian drug laws that have been put in the New York State since 1970 are part of that process. But we're talking about something different here. We're talking about kids who are going out of their way to do damage, to hurt people. And I'm just getting a message here that somebody who's trying to get to my show can't link to it live. I don't know why. I'm trying to do something about that now. What I'm going to do, guys, for those who are listening, is we're going to take a little musical break and see if we can't get some cobwebs out of this and get that straightened out. I'll be with you in a bit. I see somebody got in there. Again, for everybody who's trying to get in, apparently we've got major gremlins. Folks are trying to get in and they can't get in. But I see somebody slipped in. So everybody else, please keep trying. 718-508-9216. Try to call in live. The chat room is open. We will see what we can do to correct the problem. But as of right now, we got summer gremlins going on, so hang in there. Meanwhile, back at El Rancho, we got gremlins afoot everywhere. But folks are trying to get in. 407 on the line. 407, are you there?
Michael.
Yes.
This is Johan.
All right, my brother from the Bronx. What's up, Johan? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay now. I can hear you beautifully.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or not, but it's the first time I've ever tried to link you on the radio and I can't do it.
I see. Okay. Well, I don't know what the Blog Talk page is doing. It's been kind of intriguing the last few times we've been on the air here because we think it's in large part because of some of the stuff we're talking about, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Anyway, having said that,
but it's good fodder.
Having said that, since you are a native New Yorker, as I want to bring the audience up to speed on something that I just talked about earlier. We're seeing kids in New York City being stopped by the police, for not doing anything. They're being stopped and being having information taken down from them because they're being late to school. Now, there are school officers in the New York City public schools that could do that. They could catch them coming in the door and saying, Johan, you're late. You're supposed to be here 8:45. It's 8:55. We can take whatever late information from there. So why are police doing it in the New York City subway station, stopping them before they even get to the school, making them even more late? It goes to the stop and frisk deal, and we know it's illegal. But the bottom line is, it seems like these kids now have been under so much siege with their rights, and many of them ignorant of their rights, that they seem desensitized to it, Johan. And I'm wondering if it's just me when I say this.
No. Well, let me take this back. My last time I was in school in this city was in the Bronx. I went to Wade, PS1 or JHS 117, Morris Avenue, Grand Concourse, 175th Street. Okay. The neighborhood where we first moved in up there was really predominantly Jewish. And over the years, as everybody else was moving in, the Jews basically moved out.
Right.
Okay, that's just actual fact in life. If that sounds racist, I'm sorry, but it was true.
No, it's true. Go ahead.
And school I wouldn't say was nice, but for city standards, it wasn't that bad. I was supposed to go to 22 originally, but 22 had gangs, stabbings, all that garbage going on. So parents fought to get us into Wade. So by my ninth grade year in 70 in Wade, you had 3 street gangs running the school. You had stabbings. You had people throwing teachers down stairwells. The works. I mean, I went through it all at 15. And it got so bad, there were actually 3 cops in the school. One stayed in the basement. 2 patrolled the school area. They were all carrying 38s. So that kills me when they argue about, this with cops in schools with guns protecting kids today. I was dealing with this at 15. So it's nothing new for me. But, there were times, they did overstep their boundaries even back then. I can remember times when you were waiting for the subway to go to school and the cops are basically telling you get on the next train or else, even though the next train hadn't showed up yet.
Right.
It's and I'll be blunt about this. I'm half Italian, I'm half German, but the darker your skin was, the more they harassed you. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Because I've seen it a lot myself. I had a lot of good friends back then that were black. I saw nothing out of it. These are just people that were cool to hang around. But I did deal with it back then. It hasn't changed. It hasn't gone away. And I'm living in Florida right now. But bottom line, where I'm living in Orlando, it took 40 years to get here. The problems they were dealing with up there are now here when it comes to the gangs and the tagging and all that. And down here, it really slays me because in one of the shopping centers here, they're starting to gang tag it real bad. And the local cops around here are looking at it, and I know it's gang tagging. I've seen gang tagging. I grew up around it. But these cops down here are stupid. They're looking at, these are just kids writing on the wall, and I just shake my head.
Now, you bring up an interesting premise because, as you're saying this, Johan, so the supposed reality TV field has co-opted this and made a whole industry out of this. As I was saying, you can have Fox News say whatever the fuck they're going to say, but you know whatever they say is going to be slanted because they editorialize. And MSNBC does it too. Because because of all of MSNBC's liberal intent, you see Friday night, after everybody gets off their soapbox, you've got 4 hours of programming about fucking prisons. So we know there's some hypocrisy going on here, but for all the shows we see where cops are doing these things and they're supposed to be so ahead of the curve, why wouldn't these same cops be on point, even if they didn't know what was going on down in, Jacksonville, Fort Lauderdale, wherever you are, and say, well, you know what, the cops in Cleveland are using this and they've got gang groups, special groups that know all this stuff and whatnot, and they're passing information on, from city to city. So you're saying that they're really oblivious to this and none of this is being done.
Well, I'll tell you right now, they're not passing it on. I'm going to bring this up to date a little forward. I was in the Navy and I was in Intel for a long time, for close to 10 years. And one thing I've learned about all that is intelligence agencies do not talk to each other. They didn't when I was in. Navy intelligence did not talk to the Army. The Army didn't talk to the FBI. The FBI didn't talk to the CIA. They all played I Got a Secret.
Well, on the heels of what happened with NSA and Representative Elijah Cummings busting Darrell Issa, I would say that you're more than right on that, because that kind of busted him out in the open. But that's at least a two-drink conversation in the mix. My colleague Cowboy Reggie is in there. And Cowboy, what's going on, baby?
Well, always a pleasure to come on Pad Nation. And
Pad Nation?
I said Pad Nation. I'm sorry,
you sure
man.
did. Now, I know we all look alike, but damn.
Yeah. It's been a rough week, brother. I apologize. Please
that's all right. Everybody gets a mulligan.
It's been a rough week. Oh, yeah. I feel like Tiger Woods dating a black woman. Oops, what was I thinking? I digress.
Stop.
Yeah. Now, but on the serious tip, as your illustrious guest was saying, that here in Richmond, Virginia, they had the same problems. I mean, they even have a task force that's nothing but games. And, I mean, they even show how stacking, how they even show the different game signs and everything.
Sure.
But, something I want to throw in the pot for me, it's kind of interesting. I'm going to speak for the state of Virginia. I can't speak for nowhere else. But the sheriff department here in Richmond and also down in Tidewater, where Michael Vick and a lot of people like Bruce Smith and other outstanding athletes come from, a.k.a. Allen Iverson, they have used the sheriff department to try to reach out to the young people when it comes to sports. And they try to use sports like midnight basketball to kind of integrate them with, one, learn how to use a computer, two, learn how to go on a job interview, three, at least try to get some skills in order to try to survive. And even some young men who have problems with domestic problems with their baby mama to try to get them through the legal courts so they won't end up in jail for not missing an appointment or not paying their child support, or even just trying to get a visit. So I just kind of throw it in the pot and just get your guest thought on that.
Johan, did you hear him?
Yeah, I was listening to him. I agree with him a lot on that there because, I see that down here too. It's really bizarre because at 15 I was dealing with all this in New York. And experience is your best teacher. It really is. It's something that the only thing they can't take away from you. And when I come down here, and I'll tell you right now, I'll probably get thrown off every radio station alive for saying this, but one thing I was taught in life is never trust a cop. Never trust a cop and never tell a cop a damn thing. I've had lawyers tell me this. And they're great for this and all that there. And I can understand the bit with the sports program. But bottom line, especially here in Florida, the first thing a cop's after is an arrest. He doesn't care if he's got the right person. All he wants to do is go to the general public and go, look, I'm busting the bad guys.
And this is where the gray area comes in, guys. And I'm glad this was mentioned because this is where we started. We've gone from Reggie's premise where you've had organizations, and we grew up with these as well, Johan, like the Police Athletic League, where you're supposedly trying to bond with the community and have programs there so that the kids don't see the cops as an occupying force and all the other gut stuff that supposedly goes in theory with that. But in addition to this, you also have this other coin, or this other side of the coin, where kids are being stopped and frisked, because they're fishing.
Yeah, New York.
And not just New York, but everywhere. But it's happened a lot in New York, where people are being frisked for ID, and kids don't know enough about their rights to say, "Excuse me, officer, have I committed a crime?" And not in a combative but conversational tone. If I haven't done anything, then I'm going to be on my way. You have a good evening. And instead of them knowing their rights, they're being intimidated because they're young and they don't know unless their parents are very well informed and inform their kids properly. So you have this tenuous atmosphere in which, like Johan said, you don't trust the cops because, well, frankly, the cops haven't done anything to prove that they can be trusted. And now, on top of this, they're just taking random information with you knowing that now in New York, they may be one state where somebody made a deal and has it contractually binding that the prisons will stay at a 90% capacity rate. That we're going to fill these prisons. We don't give a shit how we fill them, and we don't care what we fill them with. But if this spirals differently in the state of Florida or the state of Virginia, where, say, if it's Pinellas County down there that they're concentrating on and not Miami-Dade County, Miami-Dade may be under this contractual umbrella because there might be more blacks and Latinos there, instead of another county where you may not see as many of a population of whites to non-whites. So these are the things underneath all this that folks aren't bringing stuff up about. And are you more distressed, Reggie, even though we've seen and known this for a while, are you more distressed that you don't see this on the nightlines and 60 Minutes anymore? Because we'll write off mainstream programming. It's like, okay, they're not going to tell you anything. But these were news magazine programs that stayed on and stood the test of time because they did touch on things that were journalistic based that people ordinarily didn't know about, or unless it was something that really picked up momentum and had so much momentum that the mainstream media couldn't stop it anymore, and they had to say something about it, otherwise they'd get embarrassed. I don't see any embarrassment factor here on their part.
Well, I'll go back to the Kim Smith story. Kim Smith was something on a national level. But I had to interject again. In Washington, D.C., they do have these groups that they do interact. Matter of fact, Washington, D.C. was the capital as far as killing the last couple of years. The murder rate has gone down substantial. So, again, I'm not, hating on your guests, but I'm just saying, again, I've seen where certain programs in certain areas, I can only speak about D.C., I only speak about Virginia, where it is working, where people are at least trying to do something positive. So I'll just throw that in the pot.
You were going to say, Johan?
Well, what gets me about this whole affair when it comes to media and reporting, I've dug up on the web quite a lot of times. I told you about PS22, the school I was supposed to go to.
Right.
It is rated right now to this day the second worst school in the state, not just the city, but the state. They're still having gang problems. There's still, shootings and stabbing and stuff going on. This stuff never makes the news. You got kids in the inner city that are facing this on a day-to-day basis. Nobody says shit. But yet some kid in small town, I'll say this, small town white bread community gets shot, and you got this national uproar.
Well,
there's some. You got the same kids in the inner city dealing with this crap. Nobody says boo.
That's right. Well, there's major truth in that. After the Columbine incident, and supposedly school districts enforced a zero tolerance policy, that zero tolerance has gone to ridiculous degrees, where we've seen 6-year-olds handcuffed for looking cross-eyed at the teacher, and my colleague Gary Norris Gray is in the mix, to such a point where people are losing their damn minds. They don't have enough sense to, if a 6-year-old is acting up, where would be a place to put them? Get a timeout, detention, something. But why would anybody handcuff a 6-year-old, and wait for the police to detain them? There's something that it borderlines on terrorism in there. You don't do that to a 6-year-old kid.
No,
you would think they would be scared enough about telling the parents something like that. And wait till your parents find out that you've been bad. We'll send a note home or something like that. That used to be enough to keep a kid in check. But you're gonna handcuff a kid to a rail and wait for the police to come?
Michael.
It's that police state. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And that's where I was going with this. It has become that, and Gary Norris Gray is in the mix. And G, you wanted to throw something in the pot?
Michael, what's happened is that these school administrators are scared of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got scared administrators. What's there to do but to handcuff the students? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But what I'm saying is you have people that are afraid of parents who come in there and say, well, how can you do that to my kid? Well, we had to go back to old school. Man, you did it wrong, you go in the corner. That was old school.
Yeah, well, old school is go over in the corner. Old school is, you're on detention. Old school is we're calling your parents and let them know that you've been bad and, they got to handle this shit when you get home. Old school was never handcuffing a 6-year-old and waiting for the cops to come in and get them. And Reggie, we've seen now that states are being contractually obliged to provide prisoners. I mean, it's in writing. Something's wrong with this. It's not. They've gone too fucking far. It's in writing. We want, and you're going to guarantee that we have 90% capacity in our prisons. That means we're going to kick out X number of beds, sheets, pillows, food. We're guaranteeing that our budget's going to be based on making sure there's at least 90% of these beds in these prisons, jails, detention centers, whatever kind of way they want to euphemize it, filled. No matter what, we got it covered. And that's the disturbing part here. That somebody said it was okay to contractually make it so is what bothers me here. So until these people are brought out of the woodwork, that's a problem. Go ahead, Reggie. I'm sorry.
Right, but see, okay, just go ahead and bring it back. I know I like to use a sports metaphor, but
sure.
late Tip O'Neill, when Lynn Byers passed away, you
that's
had
right.
people up in arms. That's why I kind of go with the Kimber Smith thing. They had people in Boston so upset, so up in arms, because they said, well, you need to do something about this drug culture, which came down with these draconian laws where all of a sudden, if you just got hit with a small amount of crack cocaine, you were looking at 20 to 25 years mandatory. So this has nothing to do with the prison industrial system. I mean, they've already got wardens who are millionaires. It's even on the stock market. But, I got to go back again what I said earlier, that I do believe that you do have some law enforcement out there, like the SNAP program here in Richmond, Virginia. And, again, I can only speak about what's happening in Richmond. I cannot speak about what's happening in Florida. I cannot speak about what's happening in New York. But I can tell you what does work here in Virginia and what's happening up in D.C. So I have to say again that if you do have those individuals out there in law enforcement, as a matter of fact, Pat Freeman and also his big brother Jim are both in law enforcement. So, and again, I have friends of mine who are personally in law enforcement. And, you said, Mike, you've been down in Richmond, and people we interact with the HBCU, a lot of them are in law enforcement.
Sure.
So, again, I mean, no, I'm not hating on my man from Florida, but in all due respect, sir, I just look at it from a different perspective. And, again, I'm not no crazy conservative, no, jackass liberal, but I got to look at it from the real world. And if we can teach these young men and ladies in order to go ahead and get out of a car without getting shot in the head blown off, that's fine. And I just want to follow up what Gary said about old school. No offense, G, but when you got 10, 11, 12-year-olds having babies, when you have grandma 44, great-grandma, 60, mama 18 and 19, where's the old school in there?
But Reggie, what we were old school is we had to teach these kids. Look, don't have kids at 12 or 13, 14-year-old kids having kids. Why? Because they want to be loved by somebody, right? Why? Because there's something missing in that. That connection, there's something missing there. What we have to do is get back to old school. What I mean by old school is the old way of family living. Everybody in the community knows everybody else. And we don't do that anymore. Everybody's crazy now.
Yeah, but you had to switch up in Maryland. Remember, a young lady tried to do old school. Her house didn't get the firebomb. She didn't get killed. That happened some 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, and all due respect, Big G, some of the neighbors out here right now, I don't want to know them. I mean, I hate to say that like that, but some of these jackasses out here, I don't want no parts of them.
But see, that's fine. Reggie, that's the problem. We have people in the street that right next door neighbor. We don't even know who they are.
Well, Gary, hold on, everybody, because into the discourse, I want to throw in my friend and colleague, Miss Spirit Soul Music. Her show comes on Sundays on WRTI 90.1 Temple University Radio, and that's Miss Bobbi Booker. Bobbi, what's going on, sis?
Hey, not too much. We at WRTI are celebrating 60 years on the air, and I'm celebrating, without disclosing my age, but just to say I was a young buck. I've been with the WRTI now for 33 years. So, hey,
just like wine, you get better with time.
It's all good, Bobbi. I want to bring you in on this from something that had been discussed on a previous show, and it had to do with something that we've talked on previous shows. Now, in Philly, where you're based, we've had issues with the fact that they're going to close 23 schools and that they've already allotted for funds for a $400 million prison to be built there. Now, we really hadn't had a chance to hear your side of this, but you're right there in the midst of all of this. Mayor Nutter has really not done himself any favors in his inaction towards reacting to the reality that in a recent poll, Philly was considered one of the poorest of the poor cities. Now, we know there's poor and there's po. When there's poor, you're poor. But when you're po, you ate an R and spent one O, and you're contemplating spending the second O. So you got all these issues there, and $400 million for a prison is trying to be legitimized by the city council and by the mayor. I mean, what is your take on this as a citizen who lives there, knowing that these kids are going to be going through a summer with not much to look forward to, no outlets where, they can at least make a couple of bucks working at a McDonald's or something, because they're staring at the premise of a $400 million prison instead of maybe 15 or 20 schools that could have been refurbished with the same amount of money.
Well, I don't know honestly, I only got this. The only thing I have to say is what is new, because my whole take on this is really your child's education. If you're a parent, and if you're a parent that cares, it is all about you. And there is, look, I was born and raised in this city, and my father, who came from the South and was part of the Great Migration to Philadelphia, one of the things he used to say to me as a child was that, there may be segregation here, but the education system here ain't worth a hill of beans. My father fought for me to have a decent public school education when I was a child by insisting that the teachers give me homework. And we're talking about the 70s. And the teachers were mad that a parent wanted them to do their job then.
Exactly.
Now, let's go forward to when I had a child, and I had to fight for him to get the proper education and assistance to accommodate what were some medical issues that he had to overcome to deal with going to school every day. But my father did what any parent, and what I ended up doing, and what any parent I know with any sense does. You don't wait for them to provide. You do what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Every weekend I was somewhere new. Every weekend I was exploring a new place. I didn't even know that this was a part of my education. It was just a part of my environmental structure. And I did the same thing for my child. And you cannot tell me now, with access to the internet, hey, the public school system they could jump in a lake, because what they really are is a babysitting daycare service. That's what they really see
I had a
themselves
teacher tell me
as.
that way back when.
It's been that way. And if you want your child to have an education, you have to you have to fight, struggle, and provide. That means if the public schools are not giving you what you need and desire, if you got to go in the Hump and make sure your child goes to that private school that provides what you feel your child needs, then so be it. If you have to stay up nights and put together an itinerary for your child to have an education structure outside of the bonehead stuff that is provided, then that's what you do. That's your responsibility as a parent. Now, the responsibility of the city is great. And I can't, I hate to say I don't have a dog in this fight, but the thing is, the next generation is important to me.
That's right.
And I have to be concerned, but I also say that the brunt of that weight of responsibility comes back to the parents who provide and to find all of those alternatives for their child. It's not as simple as sitting back, giving a bowl of Cheerios and saying, see you bye at 7:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that simple. Yep. I don't expect a teacher to be the be-all and the end-all. I expect a teacher, and I expect that my education system that is in place for a child that's going through it at the time to be an accent to what it is that I am providing as a parent.
Right.
And hopefully we can, because the biggest thing is to make sure that we provide the structure that is needed so that this child can become a productive adult in our society. And I'm sorry, I can't twiddle my thumbs and sit back and wait for a city to get it together. That child isn't going to sit back and not grow and mature waiting on me. I have a job to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And I would advise any parent to take up the act and go for what they need to go for to ensure that child's education above and beyond what a public school system in Philadelphia is providing.
Bobbi, I don't argue with you're 1,000% right on everything you're saying, and I know there are other parents that were just as proactive as you were in getting their kid an education, which leads me to the argument. Now, Gary just talked about, old school mentality, but it leads me to the argument that if we know that there are other proactive parents here, collectively their voices, you would have thought would have stuck a fire in somebody somewhere where some of this would have at least been tempered. They're not even trying to hide this. You're having the mayor of Philadelphia tell you in so many words that your education here means nothing, and even if we are babysitters, we don't really give a rat's ass about it. We see similar stuff in Chicago with Rahm Emanuel there, telling he's shutting down 54 schools, 53 elementary and 1 high school, but he's making sure that DePaul University gets a stupid new stadium so that their team can play basketball in it. Go ahead, Johan.
I'll make this even worse. I've had this happen. You go to a PTA meeting and stick up for your kids' rights, they have the cops escorting you out of it because they don't want to hear you.
Yes, exactly.
I hear you.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
When I was in high school in Florida, we had the worst football team in the state. Now, who are your coaches? Your teachers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. The high school goes to a football game Friday night and loses. You have a new science teacher because they fired the football staff. Does this help you?
Sound like the Rangers and the Cowboys. Yep. Sound like the Raiders.
That's just
I can tell by the laughter we've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's killing your public school system. It's all about the damn football team. You call up a high school, and the first thing you hear is, "Hi, welcome to so-and-so high school, home of whatever."
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
you walk into some school, the first thing you see is a trophy rack.
Now, Johan, and you got a nice place to go right where we're going to segue into, because the Steubenville, Ohio school, their high school and their football team was responsible for one of the larger indignities in recent history when some members of their team raped a young girl, took pictures of her being abused, and it ultimately led to two of these young men, these punks, being arrested and doing time. The young man who hacked their emails and all of that to help facilitate the cops doing their job may do 5 times as much time as they do if they press charges against him. But the bigger issue is this, and this was something that Serena Williams brought out. After Serena won her latest tournament, going towards Wimbledon, Rolling Stone magazine asked her about the Steubenville incident. And Serena said straight up, you know, the girl shouldn't have put herself in such a vulnerable position. And I'm paraphrasing here, but from everything she said, there was nothing that Serena said that made me believe that she was insulting the girl. Now, this is somebody whose sister and her grew up in the hard streets of Compton, California. Her father was sweeping glass off of tennis courts all over the place, watching his girls. And while somebody thought he was being too overofficious as a parent, he made sure his babies were safe. And he probably was able to tell them in so many words, even if he didn't cuss, the difference between shit and shinola. So Serena's words were catching hell from some feminists, and I'll go to you first, Reggie, because she was trying to say, hey, straight up, you got to be careful. You got to know, if somebody's offering you a drink, you got to be wondering what the hell is in the drink. Make sure somebody didn't put something in it. You know, because if they took advantage of her by slipping her a roofie or something like that, then the girl, I mean, as helpless and vulnerable as she might have been, she obviously wasn't at fault, and it wasn't her fault that anything happened to her like it did. But for her to be out of control like that and not have any of those young men look at her and say, that could be my sister, and have some of these guys go, yo, well, wait a minute, yo, we can't do that, you know, or something like that. It's a very fucked up premise. But I want to go to you first, Reggie. How did you feel about what Serena said? And did she say anything too offensive, if at all?
Well, first of all, you know, I know we got Bobbi here. Bobbi, can you hear me okay, dear?
I got you, baby.
Okay. So, you know, anytime we have a queen on the show, I like to go ahead and ask permission to speak, because if I'm saying something out of bounds, I want to come to you and you correct me, okay?
You're too kind. You're too kind, brother. It's all good.
Okay. Well, personally, after that, Serena, and again, I don't know if the young lady was drugged or what. If she was drugged, those bastards should be nailed to the cross. But you had an incident like this at Virginia Tech with Marcus Vick, had underage girls in the dorm of Virginia Tech. And these were European girls, 13, 14, 15 years old. And again, the question was, where were the parents? They was out there drinking. So I'm just saying again, and I'm going to preface this, and Bobbi, check my ass if I'm wrong, but again, my whole thing is that if this young lady was wallowing in alcohol and if she wasn't drugged, I got to ask the question, as Serena said, where were the parents, and why would you put yourself in that situation? You know, I'm just going to yield to you, Bobbi, on this one, because if I'm wrong, you check me.
Listen here, I'm going to say something. First of all, I don't know if you're aware that Serena Williams has issued a statement on her website that disputes what Rolling Stone has published.
Here we go.
And she has said, quote, I am currently reaching out to the girl's family to let her know that I am deeply sorry for what was written in the Rolling Stone article, what was written, what I supposedly said is insensitive and hurtful, and I by no means would say or insinuate that she was at all to blame, end quote. Now, the statement's a lot deeper than that.
Rolling Stone. What a shot by Rolling Stone.
Now, here's my thing, and my thing is two-part, maybe even three-part, and I'll go at it from a couple of ways, and Serena understands because Serena and her sister Venus have benefited from a beautiful black man who not only supported, cheerleaded, and ensured that they became world champions, one of his biggest battles when they were junior league tennis players was to make sure that his daughters weren't literally turned out by the sexual dynamics, straight and otherwise, that they were encountering on the professional circuit.
Tell the truth.
Okay?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that every girl child, and we don't discuss what happens with male children because it happens to them as well. Sexual predators are out here. Yes. They are usually members of your family. They are usually people that you know. They are people that you trust. And they are people that take advantage, particularly of girl children, because we as women are always taught to be more demure, to respect, to be beholden to, and, well, if he says so, it must be right. Mm-hmm. That in and of itself, from I'm talking about from toddler stage, puts us into a vulnerable position. And more than likely, and I can tell you this as a fact, and I'm not absent from the statistic, every female that I know has been sexually assaulted on some level. I'm not saying rape, but I'm not excluding or precluding that. It is something that is an element by which women must understand and deal with. Now, that means that even though, hey, we can roll around in a mini skirt, it may not really be prudent to walk everywhere in anywhere. You know, you have to be conscious of what is happening around you. And unfortunately, I don't like to blame the victim dynamic, but I'm going to have to say that as a female, you have to be extraordinarily observant and aware.
Thank you.
Of the games that people may be playing. And women aren't excused from this now, because women, when I say sexual predators, that is any and everybody. This isn't some male on female thing. This is a human on human thing. Okay?
Yeah.
So we have to do what we need to do with our children again, and there's never a time that's too soon to talk to a child about the awareness factor, about how they must advocate for themselves, about sticking up for what they feel is wrong, and for not feeling as though it is their fault when things may go awry. Because, again, as I mentioned, I don't know a woman who has not been a victim of sexual assault, myself included. So that means we must literally take this one by the horns and let our young ones, and this is no age thing. It just happens,
that's right.
You know, there are 90-year-old women that are raped, okay? We have to ensure that people understand what sexual assault is, what this breach of human nature is, and that the people who commit it, I don't care who it is, male, female, young or old, need to be held accountable. And the thing that has not really come out, if I may just digress a little bit, because when we look at our military and all of the madness that has now surfaced,
come on,
you know, we're not talking about. There are women that are involved, but there are thousands of male victims.
That's right.
Thousands of male victims who have been brutally sodomized.
Yeah.
Okay? Brutally sodomized by their fellow soldiers in the military. So this isn't a one-on-one thing, and we have to be very careful. And I'm going to go and look at how Rolling Stone dealt with this, because I find it very interesting that Serena has come back, because I wouldn't expect her to be, shall we say, cavalier.
Yep.
In a statement like that knowing what her position and place is as a woman, and particularly as the kind of woman that she appears to be, who's been
Bobbi.
a part of a sexual dynamic, and we won't even talk about the European perspective of Serena as a woman and as a sexual being, and the disrespect that they have levied on her because of her natural body.
Oh, yeah. And I want to go you one better on that, because I know where you were going with this. I think given everything and the scrutiny that the Williams women have been under, for Serena to check Rolling Stone like that makes me get the impression that they violated the most important aspect of interviewing somebody. And that is, we all know here, being in the business, tape don't lie. But if you're going to take something from somebody, it better be a damn well a direct quote that you have verified. Otherwise, everything else is subject to speculation and translation the way the writer wants it and not the way the athlete sees it. We've seen it.
Well, but I'm going to tell you, what she said, though, was no different than what I just said.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful. And you cannot take the first rule. When you I don't know, the age was a little different when I was younger, but the first thing, when I started kind of rolling out and into it, don't leave if you leave a drink unattended, do not come back and take it.
Exactly.
Do not take drinks from strange people.
That's
you
old
have
school.
to be, because it is old school, but it's also new school. You have to be extraordinarily careful of the substances, whatever they are, that you indulge in with other people because of what their agendas may be. And that's all Serena said. Her quote is I see it here, quote, "I'm not blaming the girl, but if you're a 16-year-old and you're drunk like that, your parents should teach you. Don't take drinks from other people." End quote. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to remember. If I was 16 and drunk, I wouldn't have to worry about some nut taking advantage of me. I know what would happen when I got home. And what would happen. Where's your head at? And I'm not saying that this isn't blaming the victim. But you have to also take your level of responsibility for what you're bringing to the table in this whole thing, too.
Agreed. Gary, hold on a second, Gary. We're agreeing on that for sure. But there's one other aspect to this that's really insidious, and that is the fact that in this modern world, it's a big difference than when back in the day, girlfriend got drunk and whatnot, and nobody knew about it except those people who had done whatever they had done to her, as opposed to everything being put out on Front Street, and these insidious situations where now all of a sudden the girl don't even know what's going on, but behind her back they're texting and showing pictures of her out of control or unconscious, showing things that they did to her, and even if you're conscious, the same things are in effect. Apparently, a 14-year-old girl in Indiana who had sex with somebody and whatnot, and they started talking about her. Now, all of a sudden, she's the town slut because she didn't want to have sex with the boy anymore, and because of social media, they're bullying the girl, by talking about what a slut she is. Now, this aspect of this media point coming into effect makes it even more egregious for kids, young people, to be mindful of not being under control and not being aware of their surroundings, just like you intimated. But when you see this other aspect in there, there's something about this that makes you want to go ahead and do the things that Anonymous did and hack and find these sons of bitches and get them arrested for the shit that they did, because for all intents and purposes, they were accessories after the fact. If one of my kids was playing on that damn football team and he was at that party, I'd be whipping his ass for letting what happened to that girl happen.
Right. And see, that's the thing. Now, the parents, these parents are not getting their kids. If you're old school, you take a kid, look, this is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to act. And you respect each other. And all this stuff happening I can respect the whole thing, everything, and I can respect.
But Gary, I think Bobby's right about one point though. Bobby said she was more afraid of what her parents might do to her when she gets home. If this girl didn't have any fear of her parents doing something to her because of the fact they don't take enough time to, nurture her or let her know what's really going on out here in the real world, is to the parents' detriment. Again, it's not the girl's fault because I do get the impression from everything that came out that they did do something to her. They doctored a drink or whatever it was, that had her unconscious. But the bottom line in all of this is that you've got so many more eyes on you now that it's not even as much about you being on your own personal P's and Q's, is that you're on everybody else's P's and Q list as well, because everybody's accessible to exploring and exploiting you at the same time. Is what I'm saying making sense?
Yeah, but see, Mike, the thing that really disturbs me with the Facebook, with Twitter, and Bobbi, she can back me up on this, you have people out there that are predators with this, that they're making bank off of this. I mean, how many times do we see on YouTube of, I guess, the young man who saved those 3 ladies that were abducted, and then the lady that talked about the fire? Mm-hmm. I mean, all of a sudden it goes viral. You better believe somebody's getting paid for it. So out of somebody's misery, they're getting paid. And who just say TMZ and them other places, when they hooked up with the trial and everything, and they did it 24 hours on the TV show, somebody got paid for that. So trust me, this is the new media right here, where it's like microwave oven. Throw in the microwave and see what comes up quick, because the paper media is getting outflanked. I mean, regular news is getting outflanked. I mean, am I making any sense, Bobbi?
One of the things that I was raised in the 20th century by a woman who was born in the 19th century, and those things really bore. I look back. I used to really sort of have a problem, because her thing was really about about being a lady and being aware. You smooth your skirts when you sat down. You watched where you went. You didn't stick your tongue out at strange men. You had to be very, very conscious and aware of what your role was, or what your perceived role was as a female in this society. And what do they say? An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
Amen. And I'm not saying, the tricks are strong.
Yeah.
Because, honey, I'm out, in front of my home right now. I've been watching a young male tomcat who's currently in love with a house cat that's never seen the light of day outside. And Tommy is out here working it, okay? Tommy is working it.
Tomcat working it. I like that analogy.
But the thing is, I know Tom isn't going to break down the door of that home. If he could figure out a way to scratch through that window, he would. But here's my point. My point is that everybody has an agenda, whether they make it known or not.
That's true.
And it needs to, our responsibility as not just parents, but as fellow human beings, is to ensure, assure, and make aware to those that don't know. It is our responsibility to pass the word, to say to a young lady, listen here, even if she don't listen to you, what? You need to be careful going down that street looking like that. I'm just saying.
That's what they used to say. That's right. You also would look so much better because sometimes the young women that I see that are dressed in some of the manner that I see questionable is because of their lack of confidence and assurance. And if we let them know that you're beautiful, you don't need to do that. Let them know you ain't got to strip down, you ain't got to have your
butt sticking out. You don't have to be in this manner, and nor do you have to behave that way. But we also have to be very, very aware that this is the 21st century, and it's a brave new world. And social media is the dictate. And so that means our youngsters, and us as well, have to be very, very aware of what that means and how that plays out, and to do everything that we have to do to get around becoming another victim in this matrix that we live in.
That's well put. That's
more importantly, we have to assure, because my whole thing is that we're all victims within this matrix. No one escapes. No one escapes damage. We have to embrace, support, and cheer on the people who have gone through these damaging episodes, and let them know that their lives are not over. That this is nothing but a blip on the map. It's as though you skinned your knee when you were 5, and you can't remember that. You should put these types of things in the same category and do not let these matters rule your life, but instead take these matters and use them to inform, educate, and encourage other people. And my biggest thing is that we cannot ever lose sight that men, so many men that are involved in these sexual attacks and dynamics are themselves victims.
There you go.
They are doing nothing but replicating the damage that has been put upon them. So we really need to take a huge look at this whole big picture and do what we need to move past this, and know that it's never going to be resolved. My heart was broken with the young lady in India who was so brutally attacked. They rammed a rod. And they rod inside of her and tore up her intestines. That she lived for 3 weeks past that assault is unbelievable.
These people are ridiculous.
This is happening everywhere.
Go ahead, Johan.
Go ahead.
I want to take this back a little bit and get on to parents' responsibility. Back in the 70s, when I was stationed in Bermuda, there was this girl there that was into multiple partners. And her trick was she'd get drunk, pass out in one of the guys' room, and even though technically it was rape, she didn't care, because any guy that wanted to got in line and had his way with her. Okay? Everybody knew this was going on. Nobody said squat. Now, 30-some years later, this woman is probably married, divorced, whatever, has kids of her own. How did she raise them?
I mean, you open up a whole other can of worms because you know you're talking about people who have to. First of all, one of the most troubling times in a woman's life is the moment she sprouts breath, the moment she goes from being a child to becoming a woman.
Amen.
Now, what do you deal? How do you deal with those sexual dynamics? As I recall, the form of birth control that was most urgently uttered was put a nickel between your knees and hold it. Okay. In other words, keep your legs closed. Now that doesn't deal with sexual with my sexual blossoming. It doesn't deal with. I mean, hey. If I'm 27 and I feel like engaging in a menage a trois, what's the difference if I'm 17 and I have those same feelings? I mean,
consent is consent.
That's it. So you know, how do you deal with? Because it really does come down to education. And once you realize that, first of all, as a woman, it is always very difficult to even be a full-fledged sexual being. Because if you're a sexual being, you a hoe.
Mm-hmm.
If you claim
it is.
You claim your sexuality. And I'm talking about with a partner. Just you just want to get down, and you are considered loose. And that still is a notion.
I agree.
So, so we got to deal with embracing being a sexual being. Okay? Because we haven't discussed here is the puritanical the puritanical nature of this.
Oh, hell yeah.
Come on. Afrocentric. Come on here. Come on, preach. Ashe.
We're not dealing with this overall this poor sense of sexual awareness and embracement that this country has been dealing with for, at this point, 400-odd years.
Bobbi, please let me get some of this, because that's been something we've been talking about for the last 3 shows. This puritanical attitude that we have here. Just as we talked about the girl in Steubenville getting raped, there are some websites who have spelled the word rape R and @PING, as if all of a sudden that at sign is going to mean that, oh, well, we don't really want to tell you that it's rape. Like they've taken the power away from the word. Like, oh, if we write raping instead of R @PING, they'll be sensitized to it and they won't be so offended. Well, hello. The offense is what you're writing about, you dumbasses. Why would you want to eliminate a letter or say *X and try to hope that nobody will think you're talking about sex? It's ass backwards.
Actually, I'm going to tell you, one of the things is, it's not even, at least they're dealing with the word rape. One of the things that the media has done, and I've had some real serious questions about this now for at least 5 years, they don't even use the word rape. They use sexual assault.
Yes.
They use all kinds of,
domestic assault.
There are all kinds of interesting ways they go around using the term rape.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's one thing to go around it, though, but when you're trying to deliberately not write the word because you're putting an and sign or spelling penis, P-E-N, exclamation point S, it's like, how are you dealing with the word in here?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something. With internet, particularly, with the filters and other things, I think actually that does more of a justice to it, because it's going to make people try and figure out what is being said. When you don't say it, you are saying it. So to me, that actually embraces it and gives it more power.
Right. Hey, but Bobbi, I want to throw something at you and also to the panel. Okay.
Go for it.
I really get upset with celebrities. Seem like they see that TV or they see a reporter, but they got to comment on everything. Whatever happened to no comment, or like in the words of Mark Furman, I plead the fifth. I mean, just because somebody comes and asks you a question does not mean you have to comment on every damn thing that comes to your face. I mean, that's what I have a major issue with. I mean, again, I love Serena. Thank God she won the French Open. That's cool. But my thing is, her publicist or somebody around her should be coming up saying, look, we don't need to comment, we need to keep it moving.
Nah, I'm sorry. I can't as a reporter, I can't agree with that, because one of the things, and Mike can back me up on this one. If I get a chance to speak with particularly a person that's in the news like Serena, I'm gonna throw pretty much everything at the wall, especially if it is a part of that. And not everything that is said needs to be a part of the conversation. And this is interesting, which again is why I'm going to have to go back and really pull apart this Rolling Stone interview, because this was just a small part of an encompassing interview. And all I know is that Father's Day came and went, and when they talked about world's greatest fathers, I didn't see Richard Williams anywhere.
And he should have been there.
Mm-hmm. I don't know much. I just know that if he were not the person that he looked to be, and the kind of person that I know him to be, then more than likely they would have been talking about him. And let's talk about Tiger Woods' father. Now, Earl was jokey. They ain't put, so we have to be very, very careful about the staging of these things. But one thing I'll say, that when it comes to interviews, you throw everything that you can against the wall, and it would be ill-founded for a publicist to come in and say, "Oh, sorry, we're not talking about race." I mean, because what Serena did respond to was a natural response, and one that included her background as a child that was raised by two parents in a home, and she reflected what her parents
exactly.
That's all she did,
and that's why people got pissed off. Because no, you know what? Now you just shifted the dynamic in a different direction, Bobby. Because you're right. Here's a kid from a stable home, two parents, values inflicted upon her, fully grown, fully formed, speaks her own mind.
Belief.
Home training. Home training. All the things that people say we aspire to have our kids attain. So she's speaking from where her background is. She's a product of her environment. And for every Serena, there's a bunch of more Serenas out there, but you don't hear about them because they're not on the 6 o'clock news. So for every one of those, we get the juxtaposition of this poor young lady who was put in this trepidous situation, which led to a bad situation, her getting raped, violated, and all of that. And as I shift to the other side of this, Johan, as I stated earlier in the show, it took a hacker to put all that information out on Front Street about the kids who did this to her to actually solve her case. Because in the minds of those people in that small town home of the football team that you just talked about earlier, they weren't going to talk about it. She was persona non grata, and that's exactly how it would have stayed if it weren't for that kid from Anonymous.
Boys will be boys. That was the direction that they took.
Yeah.
Boys will be boys. And this girl, and one of the things that we must always be aware of is the sacrificial lamb that exists in our society. And unfortunately, women have almost always, blacks are sacrificial lambs, but women are very disposable. So
Johanna,
Johan,
I want to go back to what I just said. That premise about that this hacker busted these guys because he was likely doing the job that the police techies were supposed to, but they didn't bother doing because, it's the football team.
It was a female blogger.
Okay, she was one. Yeah, she was one of them, Bobby. But it was also the other guy who has the label HA Anonymous, who helped put out the rest of the information that directly led to them pointing out those two kids who ended up in that courtroom and arrested. But no, there was a female involved as well. But Anonymous was the one who opened up a whole kettle of fish because she's not going to jail. The guy who's anonymous is likely going to do 10 years in jail because of his illegal hacking. Oh, you didn't know that?
Hell, President Obama need to have him on his staff.
No. Now hold on, because that leads to a whole other kettle of fish, and that's why I'm glad Johan's on here because of his background. Now, Anonymous hacked and busted this kid, but now because they're not arresting him for being a vigilante, they're arresting him because of hacking, because he also solved another case in Canada involving another rape of a girl, Rhea Parsons, who lived in Halifax, Nova Scotia, who killed herself because of constant bullying by teens that were teasing her after she was raped at a party by four 15-year-olds. And for 2 years, she was constantly harassed, and she finally took her own life. The Canadian government in Halifax said, Nova Scotia said they couldn't do anything, but Anonymous went and solved the case in 2 hours. Now, they had supposedly been following the case for a year, but because of Anonymous's hacking skills, They solved the case in 2 hours, and then the Canadian government says, well, we weren't able to resolve the issue with this young lady, Retaia Parsons. She's got petitions out on social media now. But knowing these things, Johan, is it more fearing the hacker and his capability than actually doing the job that people were paying you to do to uphold the law?
Well, the law is basically, they're getting mud thrown in their face. They're made to look like idiots. Here you probably got some 13-year-old kid out there that, is computer savvy, went through and dug all this crap up. So he's throwing this at them, and either they're too stupid to do it themselves, or they really don't care, because it's not the case that's on the political hot sheet that the chief of police wants to make him look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So bottom line, you got some 13-year-old kid out there that's making them look like imbeciles.
Mm-hmm. And Bobby, to your point, the young lady who did open the door that led to the eventual hacking that bust those guys, now she's treated as a pariah because she supposedly snitched. And I don't like the whole premise that she had to be treated that way, because she's trying to right a wrong that really should never have happened in the first place if these boys had some home training themselves and didn't take advantage and were so predatory toward this young lady.
Again, it comes back to, unfortunately, the sacrificial lambs, and that women, if the black character is the first one you see killed in the movie, the hacker horror movie, how does it look for the 15 females that are subsequently beheaded, savaged, and other things? I mean, that's really how this goes. So how is a society supposed to deal with its response to women if women are really ultimately disposable?
That's right.
And it's been a battle, and it's been a fight. And we may talk about equal rights, but the ERA has never been passed in America, and women still do not get paid on par with men, even though
female politicians tell them, don't we have enough rights on the books already? You don't need no more money. Yeah.
Well, it's not just female politicians.
I know.
So we're still talking about a disingenuous view of a gender that is societal and unfortunately global.
Yes.
And it still requires, again, which means that the men who have daughters have the biggest responsibility on this earth.
Tell me about
to ensure that they raise strong, as intelligent, as emotionally mature, as emotionally secure individuals as they can raise.
Testify.
It is those lessons that will ensure not just that next generation, but generations to come. And it really does come back to, it comes back to the men who are raising the girls. We have to they have to know and understand. The same kind of dynamic is now society-wide when it comes to interracial relationships.
That's right.
You cannot go up to, let's just say, for example, you can't go up to a white person and start talking about them N-word kids over there, because more than likely there's one in their family.
There you go.
By choice and not by accident.
Yep.
Well, women are in every family, not by choice, but by design. It is just the nature of how it goes. And so we have to understand what it means to make sure that our girl children understand the value of their worth. Because physically, there is no equality. Women are not men. And I dare a man, I double D dare a man to carry a child and give birth to it. Next.
Hello.
Okay. It ain't happening. So there is already a physical dynamic, and women already know if they use it right that they can end every war on this earth if they do put that nickel between their legs and hold. Okay. So
a lot of nickels.
So it's a lot of nickels, but I know one thing: it won't be a lot of wars.
That's true.
And it's already been done. Women have proven to do that countless times over the years. Y'all want to keep fighting? Well, y'all keep on fighting, but we know what you ain't getting when you come home. All right? So we have to know. We have to know and understand the value of our worth, but the value of our worth will never, ever be encouraged until it is delivered to us by our fathers, by our brothers, by our men, by our lovers.
That's true.
Not just other men, by the people who care about us, who understand that we need to understand and be supported.
That's right.
And you can't, you know, and it is also our right. It is a woman's right. It's anybody's right. If I feel, if I want to share myself with a person, that should be my right. That means it is not your right to take it. It is my right to share
it. Give it.
And once we understand that should be the social dynamic under which we operate, then a lot of this will be nipped in the bud. To me, though, I'm going to tell you, the real tip of the iceberg to this country's societal dynamic is what's happening in its military. And that's and we don't begin to know. We don't really even begin to know. How dysfunctional and how outrageously crazy that is, because that's not your urban cycle. That's the people that are coming out of the Bible Belt. That's the people that are coming from. That's America, okay?
And that's where the problem is. It goes back to the same kind of puritanical background that you're talking about. The more pious most of these folks are, the bigger the freaks they are when the lights are turned off or not turned off at night. And
but
when you get that kind of
Bobbi, though, but like I got to do this at Bobbi, and all due respect, Bobbi, you got a lot of ministers. They will go to the Bible, and again, I apologize not knowing the exact Bible verse and quote, but it was said that woman be submissive to your husband. But they'll also tell you that when Paul stood there and had his wife, he treated her like a queen. She didn't want for nothing. But you'd be surprised how many ministers would send a woman back to an abusive relationship by quoting the Bible, just like so many people out there quote 2 Timothy when it says, slave, obey the yoke of your master. And they just for that, for slavery. So that Bible, you know, again, has been manipulated, in my opinion, in order to keep women in check.
Oh, no question. And which is, again, why you have to understand what the agenda is. The agenda is not just always, it's not always personal nor one-on-one. It can be societal.
There you go.
And which is why we must always encourage those free thinkers, those people that are outside of the dynamic, to challenge those things and to keep the awareness alive and open. And to, you know, and to go back and read the original Bible, which isn't what King James, that the stuff that most people align themselves with. We go back
Bobbi,
and read
you try
the
to take
original
people's Bible now. You try to take people's Bible. You try to take their Jesus.
You
try to take their Jesus from them.
You go back before King James, before the edits came in, before the political agenda came in, and you see what was really laid out there. You see the power that Eve had when she came on board as the second woman, okay? Because it was Lilith first, okay? It wasn't Eve. It was Lilith. And Adam just happened to be a little bump on the log. But women have power.
Adam got lucky.
He got lucky.
What a man! What a man!
I don't know what I'm talking about.
You know,
The power of a woman.
And to really go back and see what was laid out there, because the so-called rules that we abide by, that is in the King James version of the Bible, are still we're still guidance, suggestions for a society to manage in a civil way. And to me, I don't care if it's King James or otherwise, they still can't front on it. But the Book of Solomon, the Song of Solomon, hey, Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On ain't got nothing on that.
Oh, shit.
Come on, testify.
And the woman, the primary female character in those Psalms is letting you know, baby, I love you like a rock and it's on and popping.
Bobby thinks she on there playing music, G.
She's standing up for herself. I am dark but comely. She understands the power and the beauty of her work. She understands that. And every woman on this earth should be able to stand up in the face of her desired person, be it man, woman, whoever it is that she desires, and say, I am comely, and I desire you to be with me. Without hands around her throat like Nigella Lawson, which is outrageous what happened in London. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, we you know, every woman should understand, every person should understand the power of their work, but women in particular.
That's right. But you are talking about other things though. You're talking about males that can't handle it. You're talking about a society where if some feel they're entitled to shit, they take it. There's so many subtexts to this that dampen the spirit of what you're coming off with, Bobby, and it's powerful stuff for sure. But the bottom line in all of this is that you have a society where controls and agendas are in effect, and very few people think out the box, like you say, to desire to either correct something, to put something in check, or to illuminate and help people understand bigger pictures. We've seen all of that suppressed over the last few, and it will continue to be so. And there have to be more clarity, more moments of clarity, I should say, where people can have a chance to listen to all of this, let it sit in their heads and marinate, because you are talking about things that are human necessities, and these human necessities are being dealt with sometimes in very inhumane manners. So, having said these things, we have covered a hell of a lot of ground with this. I have to deviate to another subject because we did have it on the menu, and it's on the lighter side. As we were talking earlier, Reggie, the NBA championship should have ended last night. San Antonio hits their free throws, and we're not talking about King James. You know, we know that they're going to get savage. Now, the only reason I'm bringing this up, because like I said, I didn't give a rat's ass about the basketball championships. Ever since LeBron James decided to be his own boss, he has been a target of the mainstream media, specifically the mouse. So that with the game on the line last night, all San Antonio has to do is hit a couple of free throws, and the game is out of reach because time is on their side. They miss. Miami takes advantage of it. They make it. Now we have a Game 7. But in the middle of all of this, Jay-Z comes on halftime of one of those games, either Game 5 or Game 4, and says, you know what, my new album is blowing up, blah, 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 blah. You know, oh, and by the way, this is after he signed Kevin Durant. So we know the Jay-Z effect is starting to fuck with all four major sports. He already has Robinson Cano of the Yankees. He now has Kevin Durant. He is trying to get Deshaun Jackson from the Eagles. He has Skylar Diggins playing well in the WNBA. And there are others lining up who at least want to hear what he has to say because they're thinking, JC's got his money. He ain't going to take my money because he's got his own money.
Yeah. But see, the thing about it is, Mike, the sad thing about this, you got Negroes that still think that the white man water tastes better. And perfect example, Adrian Dantley, formerly of the Indiana of Notre Dame,
Detroit Pistons, I remember him.
And Detroit Pistons was fleeced by David Falk.
Sure was.
Guess who introduced David Falk to young Allen Iverson, who's, by the way, right now on the run with his children?
Yeah.
John Thompson. And we see this cycle over and again. Terrell Owens. I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but
Drew Rosenhaus is true.
You have so many black athletes that think that they had to come to the white man or to get paid. Now, you had the guy, Tank, whatever his name was, down in Florida.
Black.
Yeah, who did some shady stuff and got busted. Even the Tulak crew was funneling people to University of Miami during the heyday when they was kicking ass during their national championships. You know, and they was feeding the women to them left and right. Sorry, Bobby, but it's part of football. I hate to say that. I know you know. I know. You know, we talk so growing thing about women being, protected, and then unfortunately the ugly reality of what they do, they put booty up there in front of these hot testosterone high school young men that come to these colleges and lose their freaking mind. So I just say again that when it comes to Jay-Z, I hope it works out, but we all know the power of money, the power of conservatives, that when they want to get in there and say, look, boy, you messing with our money, they'll do everything they can to go after him.
Well, we know that, but see, as Professor Fred comes into the mix here, we're talking about a totally different dynamic. This is not a brother who got his law degree, can practice and whatnot. Now he's operating as an agent. There's an X factor to Jay-Z that none of these guys in any league figured on. They thought Jay-Z was going to be quiet and happy with his little piece of the Nets because Brooklyn needed him as an attractant to get the bigger buyer, who was the Russian guy. And when Jay-Z sold his interest in the Nets, they never thought that he would do or become this effective in what he was doing this quickly. Let's be real here. With the NBA Finals coming up, LeBron James is still going to be their linchpin for a long time, not just from a standpoint of publicity, but from promotion. LeBron James did something that Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and all the other players, Kobe Bryant, couldn't do. He makes everybody money off the strength of his personality. Jordan, for all they wanted to do for him, for all the championships he won, he wasn't as driven to promote the league as he was his own personal and team success with Chicago. LeBron came into the league, and David Stern pretty much said in so many words, we need you to make money for us, LeBron. You're going to be our brand. You're going to represent us. And he has. And everybody has made money. And when LeBron said he wanted to be his own boss, that's when the shit started. So now the basketball really isn't, it's secondary to what's going on here. Fred, is that you in the background?
That's why. That's why the people in Cleveland yelling at LeBron.
Professor, is that you?
That's me.
All right. Good evening, first of all. And as threw this into the mix here about Jay-Z and the factor of him, what he can and can't do, it's clear that the leagues aren't, or they didn't expect him to be this successful this quickly in attracting two of the most marketable stars in the league, with at least LeBron liking Jay-Z's music and Kevin Durant now being signed by Jay-Z, handling his personal affairs. This makes the league have to think twice about how they're going to promote, because how are they going to invest money when they know they're not going to get as much on the return, seeing one of their most marketable stars now has a black agent?
Well, not just a black agent, a smart black agent. A black agent who understands the game. And a black agent who is not beholden to them for his original money, because he has his hands on Beyonce and a few other things that go far beyond just his actual money. And see, the good thing for in his case, this is why I don't like Harley Davidson. So the good thing in his case is he got money that they can't touch. He got money that that they don't already control. He got money on top of money, and he ain't no fool with his money. He's one of them guys who did that almost righteous thing. Let's go talk to Warren Buffett and some other white guys who got money, who know how money works, and the good thing is he's a true gangster, so to speak. He's one of them cats who has fought those battles. He was out there fighting people when he was making his own money, selling those CDs and his music out of his trunk. And then when he caught other people bootlegging his money, he made them pay or quit bootlegging. So, and from what I understand about him, you don't have to like everything about him like I don't like everything about other people. But, hey, he has done most of the right things. Some people took issue with his little episode into Cuba, but, hey, he's an American citizen who is free to go where he wants to. And the president ain't got nothing to do with where he goes. That was some political boondoggle going on there. But hey, he's a man. He's one of those guys who actually, if there is I don't think anybody's truly a self-made man, but I think he put the right pieces together.
I agree. Bobby, I know this might not be as intrinsic to you from a sports aspect, but from a media promotion, public eye pop culture aspect, this has some dynamic paradigms to it, because we are talking about somebody who is high profile, who understands the media or seems to have a firm grasp of what the media can and can't do, and he is more than willing to utilize his own star power to attract. And we know while those cameras are running, they may indulge him, but you got to figure somebody is pissed that they missed this.
Well,
all I know is Jay-Z got 99 problems, and this isn't one of them, okay?
Exactly.
I mean,
that's my girl, Bobby. That's my girl.
You have to be very, very clear about Jay-Z as America's cultural tastemaker. Okay? We're not talking about a person that black folks follow behind. We're talking about a person that the mainstream, that person out in the Bible Belt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you listen to the mashup, the
Beyonce.
mashup music of Jay-Z and the Beatles. When you listen to he goes out. He doesn't just. He's not just doing some hip hop stuff. We're talking about a boy that goes to the Burning Man concert. We're talking about a person that is in the mix. We're talking about a person when President Obama, when he was running, what did he do? He brushed off his shoulder. All right. So, I mean, you can't. If Jay-Z weren't a brown man, he would be a heralded man on a whole other level.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying everything he does is right, but I got nothing but respect for what I see as the business aspect of a person who understands how to strike when the iron is hot.
Exactly. Yep.
And if his name was Mark Cuban, okay, he would have a show on ABC or something right now.
Hell to yes.
So I'm not mad at what I, because it's all a big game, and when it's it's not one of the mainstream that is playing this game at this level, then folks want to get a little twisted. But hey, I ain't got nothing but love for Jay-Z, and I can't wait to see what this new trick gonna be.
Exactly. And having said that, Gary, I think the thing that I find most intriguing about this is how many will follow, not necessarily following Jay-Z, but follow on the fact that it's important to be able to write your own check. It's important to be able to keep track of your own finances, to save your own money, to reinvest in your communities, and in very real ways. Right now, Wendell Pierce, who was an actor, and some of you guys may know he was one of the policemen in the series The Wire, and he's done other roles. He's bought supermarkets in New Orleans. Now think about that. That doesn't sound like a big deal on the surface of it, but you think about how many times you have to go to a supermarket for something, how many times you complain about fresh produce or fresh meat or whatever like that, knowing that there are cities across America where you know substandard meat and other kind of crap is being funneled in there because it's the post side of town. And what Mr. Pierce is doing is downright revolutionary. Because what's been said all these years, let's shop in our own areas, shop at our own stores, all those other inclusive things that would keep dollars circulating within. Many of those same things that were part of the fabric before baseball integrated, to be perfectly honest, if we're going to keep it 100. So in that spirit, I'm hoping that other players are going to learn that, yes, it's a good idea to write your own checks, get someone that will help you write those checks, and if that person happens to be black that's going to help you learn how to write your own checks, all the more for it.
But there are a lot of people in the sports community professionally that do a lot of stuff the same way, and they don't want the cameras in their face, and I salute them for that, because they're doing it for the good of the community, not for their own face time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about all this stuff is that Martin Luther King 30 years ago, the reason why he was slain is because you got two things: political power and economic power.
Sure.
Yeah. But hey, what Jay-Z is doing right now is economic power. All right? Mm-hmm. Once you get one, you get the other one. So if Jay-Z is successful, we will gain political power and economics. That's what Martin Luther King was talking about before he got killed.
Very important that we never forget that, because we really are talking about flying in the face of all of the indignities that were tossed at us by reminding everybody that this was never an issue about bootstraps. Those bootstraps have been picked up a long-ass time ago and been carried and had somebody's bootstraps and their bootstraps before them taken care of. We've been carrying boots and picking everything else for almost 500 damn years. And don't say that we need to build everything, because when shit was built in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you burnt it to the ground because you were resentful that it was so successful. Yeah. And you did the same thing in Rosewood, Florida. And you did the same thing in other areas around this country. So let's be real here. I appreciate what potential Jay-Z may represent here. And if it makes somebody think, well, I don't want to deal with Jay-Z because maybe he's not my type, but Fletcher Smith handled Donovan McNabb's affairs for a long time, so maybe Fletcher's more my speed. So maybe they will think in more of a global aspect and not get so caught up when somebody slaps that, puts keys in their hand and says, well, you know what, that Range Rover over there, that's yours. All you need to do is sign and not fall for the okie doke, because when they come and take that Range Rover in the middle of the night because you can't make that payment because your shit's been taken. Exactly. Hello and goodbye.
Yeah.
Now,
see, Allen Iverson, that happened to him.
We're at the point in the show where, unfortunately, and I'm sorry for everybody who had to endure the gremlins, this turned out, as I usually expected, quite nicely. And, Johan, since you are the visiting guest, and I want to thank you for your patronage and checking out our show and whatnot, it's policy that everybody on the line gets to get a last lick on any subject that they wish. And you can make a shameless plug if you have something to be shameless for. So you're first, brother. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I appreciate being on. I usually try to catch you on the web, but I've been having problems with it lately. I think we all know why. I bow to the Queen. All hail to the Queen. Nice meeting everybody here. I want to keep plugs in before I get yelled at here. But the only plug I'll give on here is there's a lot of homeless animals out there on the streets for reasons that we all know why. They all need help. I'd rather give to an animal shelter than a big league charity. At least with an animal shelter, I know where the money's going.
Right.
You know, if you got a chance out there, you know, you see some cat lady in a pet store, so drop off a bag of food or whatever. Every little bit helps. I'm not asking for much. I'm just a paid-for kind of guy. And I'll end it there. Thanks again for having me here.
Thank you for being here, Johan. Thank you so much. My brother from the Bronx, Johan Fick, everybody, gracious to take some time to talk with us tonight, and I really appreciate your input. Professor? Yeah, I know. I heard you rolling in on that big old hog now, brother. So you got to throw something in the pot. I'm glad you checked in. I'm glad things were successful in selling the books and stuff like that. Remind everybody about that trip, and please give us a final thought as well before your shameless plug.
Well, we're getting things rolling on the Heritage HBCU Heritage Hall of Fame and Museum. We got the book part. Two of the book parts are, well, actually 4 of the book parts are pretty well completed. So just follow us on Facebook. Go to Black Heritage Review or Black Federal Heritage, or go to my page. For those who don't know, any of the books that we sell are sold on at www.blackheritagereview.com. And you can get the Sports Encyclopedia as well as copies of the Black College Alumni American Role Models are now ready. And those sales for those books are actually going towards supporting the HBCU Heritage Museum and Hall of Fame. And I'll be on Saturday.
All right. There it is, y'all. The professor.
Regular Saturday.
Doing his thing. That's www.blackheritagereview.com. Professor Fred Whitted, author of the Black College Sports Encyclopedia. Bobbi, it's so good to have you in the mix, sister. And as always, we love your input, the passion steaming off these airwaves tonight, and I love you for it. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. Give me a shameless plug and a final thought, if you will.
Well, you know, any and everything that you hear me utter is because there was a proud black man who ensured that I had the confidence and the fortitude to move forward and live the life that I dreamed for myself. And I wasn't his first successful child, but I was his last child, and I was the child that he invested in, and I am a product of his investment. So as we have now ventured past another formal Father's Day, and next year, 2014, will mark the 100th anniversary of my dearly departed father, Benny Booker's death, I have got to do shout out to him, because he did what so many people didn't do. As a lot of folk here don't know, I was abandoned shortly after birth and raised by this man who may or may not have been my biological father. But that has never mattered to me, because it was his hands, his voice, and his guidance that took me through my childhood and into my adult life. And the reason that I am a writer and a reporter today is because he told people when I was a child, let the girl write. So
right.
I am more than happy to bear his name as mine, and I'm a proud Booker. And to all of the brothers that are out there just doing the right thing, that'll never get a plug anywhere, God bless them, and stay strong. And understand that the perseverance that you do now results in a better future in our generations to come. And that's really all it's about. And one of the reasons why I do what I do on Spirit Soul Music, which is all about the spirit that is in soul music, was because as a child, My father did believe in towing a line on Sundays. So on the Sabbath day, I wasn't to listen to secular music, and I had to find other options. And those options were college radio and alternative radio and other things that was going on the dial. And because of that exposure and that dynamic that was drilled into me from childhood, I have a chance to host my show, Spirit Soul Music on Ovation. And I'll be on the first and second Sundays all summer long, July, August, and September, on 90.1 FM in Philadelphia. We're online. We're on iTunes, Spirit Soul Music. And again, Mike, thank you and all of the gentlemen that are a part of this scene tonight. It's been my honor to be a part of this.
Thank you. Our honor as well, Bobbi. Ashe. Cowboy saddled up and gave us some good food for thought tonight, my brother. Time with your final thought and shameless plug.
Well, first of all, again, Mike, thank you for giving me a mulligan. Like I said, it's been a rough week. If you go on my Facebook page, dear friend of mine, Jerome Reed, who many of you have attended an HBCU game, was a big, giant fella that used to be on the sidelines taking pictures. God bless him for the free press and also Jerome Photography. Well, he was also be advanced such this past Saturday, and losing him, Mike, was like losing my brother. He took me under his wing about taking pictures or just knowing the ins and outs of just being a reporter when they came to HBCU. So today, I raise a glass and pour in vibration for Jerome Reed. Again, if you see on the Facebook page, his funeral will be this coming Saturday in Franklin, Virginia, but we're going to have a wake for him in Petersburg on Friday. So, Jerome, this one's for you. Sports Talk every Saturday from 11 to 12. From 12 to 1 at www.wcmradio.com, www.wcmradio.com.
Ashe, Reggie, we love you, brother, and I know what you mean.
Love y'all, too.
My brother, Doc, I felt the same. I still miss him to this day.
Yes,
Gary,
sir.
Mr. Biggz, time for a shameless plug, my brother, and your final thought.
Yes, sir. Back in the day, they said, a mind, a terrible thing to waste. My friend, ninth grader, Tony Hansberry, who went to Cornell Coleman School of Medical Arts in Jacksonville, Florida, had a new medical procedure. A ninth grader, right? He's going to the University of Florida this year. Now, this young African-American male has changed his medical field in performing hysterectomies. Now, this guy is 14, 15 years old. Okay? Why can't we promote Mr. Hansberry for what he has done instead of promoting the stars on TV today? So I salute 15-year-old Tony Hansberry tonight for making the world a better place.
I agree, brother. I agree. I actually saw that posting on social media as well. But that's another one of those cases where good news in our community is nowhere anywhere else, or no news anywhere else. And that's where the black press is at fault, because they're the ones who need to go ahead and take up the mantle and exalt this kid and remind everybody the suspect is not always a black male. This is a young man who's going to be helping millions of people with his procedure and what he's thought, and what things will he be able to develop if given a proper atmosphere in which to do so. For your show, please give us a shameless plug.
Okay, the last installment of the Good Gold Music Box will be this Friday and this Monday. That will be the last of the series. The 1990 to 2000, all the slow dances. And episode will be on 1 o'clock on Saturday right after Tuesday on the Raw. So hope you come on in and join the goal.
All right, brother. Thank you. As always, the music box programs that have been added to Black Music Month. Gary has one more coming up this Friday and another one Sunday. Both start times 6 p.m. on the West, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. 2 hours of reminiscing and good music. Y'all come back and check Gary out. And he's on Saturdays after we're off with Sultry Radio on the Raw, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on the West Coast. Before I go into my final thought, just a programming note and my first shameless plug. Programming note, we have been doing extra shows for Black Music Month as well. Our next show will be this Sunday, and it will focus on great musical performances. Not necessarily performers or acts that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but those that have stood the test of time that people need to hear because it was those moments in time where either production and the artists were on point or the artist just superseded everything and just flat out kicked everybody's ass. So you're going to hear men, women, and groups doing this for 2 hours. The top choice cuts of songs that were played by acts who are either in or should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's this Sunday from 9 to 11. The last Sunday of the month, our normal Beggars Banquet. Hot fun devoted to summer love songs. Now, I am proud to say that my first book, Imitation and Life, is for sale on Amazon and it should be available on Kindle as well. My first copies have been sold. I want to thank the people who actually bought them, and I'm hoping that there'll be a lot more people buying them. It's insight on politics, sports, music, religion, and all other type things with some little kicky things regarding movie themes, and you might find it intriguing. I hope you'll check it out. It is the first of 3 book projects that will be completed this year. The second book is a science fiction book, about 2/3 in production. But the first book is out, Imitation and Life. You can get it on Amazon.com, and it should be available on Kindle very, very soon. Now, having said that, as always, I want to thank my staff of chefs for providing good food for thought. But this one I want to send out to a colleague who's a soul patroller on internet and in the social media vibe. His name is Kevin Campbell, and he passed out some crucial information regarding the city of Detroit. And I'm going to read verbatim from it so everybody gets the gist of it. Major alert, another American city that looks like Syria, but the government is too busy blowing up the rest of the world to care. Detroit's infrastructure is crumbling. 40% of its streetlights are out of order, and it has 78,000 abandoned and blighted structures, of which 38,000 are considered dangerous buildings. Those buildings account for a large proportion of the 12,000 fires Detroit has every year. At the moment, firefighters are instructed not to use the hydraulic ladders on their fire trucks unless there is an immediate threat to life, because the ladders have not received safety inspections for years. Detroit has also just 36 ambulances, of which generally no more than 14 are in operation at any given time. And in terms of the city's IT infrastructure, well, you can probably guess. Suffice to say that a recent IRS audit characterized the city's income tax system as catastrophic. Now, the reason I read that was because if you all remember the movie RoboCop, Detroit was privatized into a city, including the police functions, everything else. It was out of the mayor's hands and the governor's hands. It was actually put in the hands of a board for a corporation called OCP. I've had problems with privatization from the word go. When we had the issues in Oklahoma with the storms, I mentioned on my show a couple of weeks ago and earlier on the beginning of this show that there was a fear that somehow a Halliburton-type company was going to come out of the woodwork and provide disaster services at a reasonable rate and do the government's work. Falling bridges is the government's job. Fixing streetlights is the government's job. Providing safe haven, schools, these are government functions. These should never be the domain of privatization, because we know when privatization comes, so does corruption. The fact that Detroit looks like Poland after the Germans bopped through it is an indication of have and have not in everybody's face. This one place that used to make cars for all the world to see and for all the world to drive is now a vast wasteland. And instead of trying to write Detroit off as if it don't exist, as I said on a previous show, think about my man from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, who was screaming after he got away from those sons of bitches in Santa Mira, and he said, "They're here already. You're next." We'll see you Saturday with our regular scheduled version of Sultry Radio on the Raw, 2 to 4. For my colleagues, for Johan Fick, for Bobby Booker, for Fred, for Fred Whitted, for Cowboy Reggie, for Gary Norris Gray, for everybody else on staff who is on location. Kitchen's closed. We out.